Just like in the employment, employer-employee relationship, in the lending relationship, we have a principal-agent problem, right? And a principal-agent problem is when you have a principal who wants an agent to do something, but isn't really able to verify that the agent is doing what they want, right? So in the labor market, the problem is that the employer can't tell how much effort the employee is giving. In the lending market, the lender can't tell if the borrower is doing everything to make sure that the project is a success, right? And so that creates a problem because if the lender uh, is going to lend, is going to give the money for the project to the borrower, he or she wants to make sure that it has the best chance of success possible. So, in order to resolve this conflict of interest between the lender and the borrower, there's a number of possible options, right? One is that there could be equity, which means that the borrower uses some of his or her own money in the project. So perhaps the borrower doesn't borrow 100% of the cost of the project, but borrows 50% or 80% of the cost and uses his or her own wealth to fund the other 20 or 50%. That way, if the project goes bankrupt, the borrower is hurt too. And so now the lender feels confident that the borrower is going to work as hard as possible to make sure the project is a success. The other possibility is that the borrower puts up some collateral, right? And so the collateral says, all right, well, if I don't pay you back this loan, you get to have this collateral. And so now there is a risk to the borrower that if the loan is not repaid, he or she is going to lose that collateral. And so that provides an incentive for the borrower to work as hard as possible as well. So the problem is that if you can't provide equity or collateral, then you're going to find it much more difficult to get a loan. And so that can lead to credit rationing, which basically means that when those with less wealth borrow on unfavorable terms, right, compared with those with more wealth, or are refused loans entirely. And so, if you're somebody who's poor who says, "Oh my God, I have a great business idea. I really think it's going to be successful, but I need to borrow $300,000 in order to get it off the ground," you're much less likely to get that loan than someone who already has a certain amount of wealth, right? And this is sort of one of the paradoxes of the uh, loanable funds market is that those who are poor and who have less ability to uh, use their own money face either higher interest rates, which makes it harder to pay back the loan, or are not given loans at all. And so this can, of course, increase inequality, right? And so, the example from the book here is that, if some 40% of potential borrowers are excluded from the credit market, then instead of getting the same as the other workers, then they don't get, anything. They have no income. And our Lorenz curve kind of shifts down, which increases the Gini coefficient, which increases inequality. And so if there is credit rationing, especially if there's significant credit rationing, that can really increase inequality. There have been some efforts in poor countries to do something called micro lending or microfinancing, which is basically trying to get beyond this credit rationing problem by giving very small loans to people in villages, especially women who might traditionally be more credit rationed than others. And that's met with some success. Certainly, there have been some success stories, and there's been some other stories where it hasn't gone as well. But that can be very important. Um, and interestingly, one of the things that can allow credit rationing to um, or allow a country to get rid of credit rationing is something like a credit bureau, right? So if you have a credit score and credit reports, you might be able to borrow a small amount of money, pay that back. That increases your credit score. You borrow a little bit more money, you pay that back. That increases your credit score. And so as long as you keep doing that, then your credit score can keep going up, and that allows you access into these credit markets. And so I saw a very interesting research paper last year about countries, developing countries that don't have these credit bureaus, and basically there's a lot more credit rationing in those countries, and people find it very difficult to get loans.